a Facebook group which contains 25,000 members. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And today is a very important day, and we will start today's session with an invocation of a song. So let me just share the screen, please. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And first of all, I, Randhir Kumar Gautam, on behalf of Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, Puducherry and Chennai, welcome you to attend today's Swadhyay Sahachakra dialogue on the very topic, Quest for Tibetan Freedom and Dignity. It is a great pleasure and indeed an honor to have available with us distinguished speakers, friends, but dear and respected participants. I welcome chair of today's session, Professor Anand Kumar, National President of Indian Tibetan Friendship Society. I welcome speaker of today's session, Tashi Dekyi. She is working as a coordinator of ITCO. I welcome Novanita Sharma. She is working coordinator called an organization called Free Tibet, a voice from Assam. I welcome Professor Gyan, Dr. Jeel, Dr. Megha, Dr. Manoj, and all friends co-present here, both on Zoom platform and Facebook platform. Let me give a brief introduction to our speakers. First, I would like to introduce Ms. Novanita Sharma. She is an active and a very deeply engaged person. She is working in Assam and also some part of Northeast India, supporting the peaceful Tibetan freedom movement as coordinator of People's Forum called Free Tibet, a voice from Assam. She is an environmentalist and she has very different perspective to see the whole quest of Tibetan freedom. We welcome, then we have another second speaker, Tashi Dekyi. She is also engaged in Tibetan movement and she has actively engaged in research and also mobilizing people or shaping and nurturing public opinion in India and abroad for Tibet freedom. So first, I would like to invite Professor Anand Kumar to kindly give a brief introduction of the topic, and then we'll have discussion and dialogue with the speakers. So Professor Anand Kumar, over to you.
Thank you, Randhir, and thanks to all the people who have taken their time to participate in this Zoom consultation and conversation. It is very interesting that today Vishwaneedam has provided us an opportunity, a rare opportunity, to hear the voices from Eastern India, that is Assam, and a Tibetan migrant working from Indian soil for the cause of Tibet's freedom. Tibet is home of spirituality of the Buddhist kind. It is one of the most protected and preserved places in Asia where the teachings of Nalanda tradition of Buddhism are practiced in totality. Tibet also is home of a lot of classical material which was taken from Indian centers of Buddhist learning when they were subjected to invasions from other parts of the world, particularly the northwest frontiers of India. So that way Tibet is trustee of Indian wisdom and Indian knowledge. Quest for freedom of Tibet began from 1959 when the Chinese army, propelled by Maoist nationalism, a very strange kind of hybrid of internationalism of Marxism and nationalism of Chinese communists made all the neighboring parts of China its target. And from Xinjiang and Tibet and Inner Mongolia to Hong Kong, there are many internal colonies of People's Republic of China, which is the identity achieved through Communist Revolution and which gave a new geography through military-based expansionism. And today's People's Republic of China contains several pockets of internal colonies. Tibet is one of their worst victims because neither language, nor culture, nor history, nor ecology supports the Chinese claim over Tibet. Tibet was free nation state even in a period when part of China was occupied by Japanese. So between the First World War until the end of the Second World War, from 1914 to 1949, Tibet was an independent country, which was helping the Chinese people in their quest for freedom and dignity and justice. Today, it is a long story, long journey of peaceful, they call it Mukti Sadhana, peaceful quest for freedom from Chinese occupation. I am a volunteer of India-Tibet Friendship Society for several decades now, and I'm looking forward to this very special interaction because generally, Himalayan people of India and Buddhist people of India are more responsive, more sensitive to the Tibetan cause because of cultural affinity and spiritual togetherness. But here is a voice from Assam who is going to add to the power of peace, power of justice, power of dignity, power of freedom in her own way, and it will be suitably complemented by a Tibetan voice. So without being an interference between you and the two speakers, let me join the organizers of this evening's program in welcoming these two, and I request Randhir Gautamji to further moderate discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Anand Kumar. Beautifully, you set a stage where we can have dialogue with these two persons. So before inviting our speaker, I would also like to invite Professor Anand Giri to give a kind of thematic presentation about the whole dialogue. Yes.
Thank you so much, Tesedile, Randhir, Tesedile, Professor Anand Kumar, and Tashi, and Naveen, and our dear friends. So the challenge for us tonight, which is part of a very longer challenge, the quest for Tibetan freedom and dignity, as Professor Anand Kumar has discussed. In fact, the tragedy began right in 1949 itself. And then in 1959, all the promises that People's Republic of China had made to Tibet, including Prime Minister Nehru, and all these were trampled upon. But the wider challenge is, as Professor Anand Kumar was pointing to, pockets of internal colonialism. And pockets of internal colonialism and suppression, and this quest for freedom and dignity in this context, as it happens in the context of the primacy of nation state. And at the moment, we feel entrapped as if there is no way out. My submission is that the quest for Tibetan freedom and dignity, as for example, the quest for many freedoms around the world, it requires of fundamental rethinking, of the framework of nation state. Their contemporary challenge: how do we, with and beyond nation state, we create varieties of post-national spaces, and it is not an immediate destruction of the nation state without making the nation states much more anxiety-ridden, which would then spur them to take much more repressive action. It is in the interest of all of us to move from a very uncritical phase of self-determination. Sri Aurobindo wrote, many years ago, a book called War and Self-Determination, reflecting upon the logic of self-determination, which was also an inspiration for India's freedom struggle. My submission is that all the challenges that we have vis-a-vis nationality and culture, let us think of moving from self-determination to mutual determination. And the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, also has made it very clear that he wants a space of dignity, within the interlinked Chinese space. And of course, there are many other voices in Tibet who are fighting for full Tibetan independence, for example. But the Dalai Lama's position is something which requires a rethinking of a one-dimensional violent logic of nation state. Also, the idea of self-determination, how it can flow into creative processes of mutual determination. It is in this context, as the Himalaya is our mother. The Himalaya is the mother of India, China, and Tibet. And I remember the great Chinese philosopher Tu Weiming. He has said that let us really nurture Tibet as the spiritual heritage of humanity. But that spiritual heritage of humanity is not isolated from the challenge of freedom and dignity. Therefore, let us join our friends in realizing freedom and dignity for our brothers and sisters of Tibet. And one thing that we are challenged to remember, that the life of the nation state, the life of violence, the life of violent sovereign power, it really cannot suppress the tenacity of people, in terms of cultural and spiritual power. And therefore, it is that cultural and spiritual strength, language, culture, religion, the spiritual journey that has kept our people alive, our brothers and sisters, not only kind of survive, but thrive. And it is that power of creative culture, it is that power of creative spirituality, which will show us a way from the kind of the impasse of the nation state and the logic of appropriation to a new world of beauty and dignity and dialogue, where India, China, Tibet, Kashmir, Pakistan, including Palestine, we all can flourish together. And the urge for that is the kind of the climate change that is happening, because the climate change is going to really redraw many of our familiar boundaries. And we hope that once we are in a boat and we all try to learn that we have to live together, otherwise we sink together. So with this submission, we are to being enriched by our speakers.
Thank you, Professor Anand Giri, as usual, very deep. And now let us invite first speaker of today's session, Tashi Dekyi, to share her experience, her quest for liberation of Tibet, and let us learn some of the unlearned journey of Tibetan freedom. So, Tashi, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. And first of all, I would like to pay my immense I'm so deeply honored, Mr. Ananta, Miss Ananta and Randhir ji for organizing such important program. And myself, my name is Tashi Dekyi, and currently I am serving in India-Tibet Coordination Office. I recently joined 4 months ago in ITCO, but I have been serving in Central Tibetan Administration, also known as Tibetan Government in Exile, since 2006. So I am born and brought up in India, and I am the third generation in exile. So my forefathers, our grandparents, quest for freedom, it's been like 1959, but for me personally, since the day I was born, my quest for freedom, and still it's still continuously going strong. So, and here right now I'm representing Tibetan government in exile. So I would like to speak a few on the our Tibetan government in exile policy. Our struggle, and the policy that we adopted is the middle way approach. Yeah, and through middle way approach, I think that's the most dignified way in quest for our freedom by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So I would like to shed a few light on the middle way approach. So after decades of Chinese occupation and Tibetans inside Tibet expressed their categorical rejection of Beijing's failed policies in Tibet through self-immolation since 2009. So the urgency on the ground has never been so palpable. So based on the middle way approach, Umelam, we call Umelam in Tibetan, the Tibetan leadership and His Holiness the Dalai Lama persist in seeking a peaceful solution through dialogue. So one that is realistic and bears in mind both Tibetan and Chinese interests. For Tibetans, the middle way approach implies not seeking independence, but genuine autonomy within the framework of the People's Republic of China. This vision is articulated in the Memorandum on Genuine Autonomy for the Tibetan People, which was presented to the Chinese government in 2008. So ensuring that the international community is aware of our earnest effort is a formidable task. To succeed, we appeal to all those who believe in truth, peace, and the preservation of Tibetan cultural identity to join us in our first. So I think, in my opinion, I think that's the most dignified way for the quest for our freedom. Because His Holiness has always believed most human conflicts can be solved through genuine dialogue conducted within a spirit of openness and reconciliation. So this is what I truly believed. Middle way approach is the most peaceful way. So and because knowing the fact that Chinese government, the communist government has been only good in suppressing and threatening and deceiving. So I urge Indian government also to must introspect on any ties or agreement or any policy offered from China, since we have experienced in our history that the Shimla Treaty 1914 and the Panchshil Agreement of 1954, which was killed by the spirit by the Chinese in October 1962, and after in 1962, Chinese have attacked in India. So we have experienced in our history that China is only good in deceiving and threatening and suppressing. So which for me personally, this is what I truly, as you can see, my background is Potala His Holiness. Since I am born in exile, we never had an opportunity to visit our country, our land, our beloved land. So our quest, excuse me, oh, okay, sorry if, apologies for the inconvenience. There was some technical thing. Yeah, so this is my humble request is To each and everyone who has joined this program, that I am deeply honored and thankful. I have no words. I'm like, we are highly, highly obliged and grateful for all the support, not only from Indian government, but throughout the world, for the quest for our freedom and Tibetan cause and movement, and not just Tibetans' interest. I think it's now we have aware, like we all are aware that what China is China's wrongdoing inside Tibet, because Tibetans inside Tibet, human rights and the environment destruction, the exploitation, overuse of exploitation that happening inside Tibet. It's a matter of each and every one concern in this world, because we all are eventually, we all have one world, and we all live in this one world, and global warming and water scarcity, we all are aware of all these facts. And China overusing, over-exploiting, China is destructing all, not only world peace, human rights destruction, but environmental destruction also. So I urge each and every one of you to support us, and you have been supporting us for our cause only. But now I believe Tibet issue is not only like our issue. I think it's each and every one of our issue, because we eventually we all live in one world. We all have one planet. So our concern should be like, in this, about this planet and world peace also. Yes. Yes, Ananta ji.
Thank you so much.
I hope I haven't taken much time.
Thank you so much. Now we are going to invite Novanita Sharma. He has also actively engaged in environmental movement also. So she will touch some of the environmental concern, why Tibetan freedom is important for all of us. So Novanita Sharma, over to you.
Namaskar, Tashi. So, first of all, my deep respect to Professor Anand Kumar ji, and my deep respect to Professor Anand Kumar Giri ji, and deepest gratitude to Convener Randhir Kumar Gautam for inviting me to today's special session. It's, I consider it, it's a privilege to interact with this group today. Thank you so much. So, I am Novanita Sharma. I'm the coordinator of a People's Forum called Free Tibet Voice from Assam. So I'm representing. I think I am representing Indians who really love Tibet and who consider the Tibetan freedom movement an Indian cause. So I would like to elaborate on certain things before, like what I feel is important for anybody who is connecting with the Tibetan freedom movement. And then I will slowly go towards, our forum and what kind of work we are doing in Assam and Northeast India to raise a people's movement in Assam, supporting the Tibetan freedom movement. So I think first thing that Indian Tibetan cause is an Indian cause, is an essentially Indian movement also. So this is very important to understand for anybody in India who is supporting the Tibetan freedom movement, because Tibet is a real neighbor. Since ancient times, okay, and in 1959, since 1959, Tibet has been forcefully occupied by Communist China, the People's Republic of China. But that has not changed this scenario at all. Tibet remains our real neighbor, despite this forceful occupation of Tibet by China from 1959. And I think this connection of Tibet and India is not only a political relationship. The relationship between India and Tibet is very deep. It goes into very deep spiritual connection, very deep emotional connection. Indians and Tibetans, they have always been like brothers together. And I think this has never changed from the ancient time till today. I think we as Indians, we should consider it, we should actually point it out that this is a failure of the Communist Chinese government. They have done everything. Communist Chinese government has done every violent act to sever this relationship between Tibetans and Indians, but it has not happened, which is very clearly visible. The Chinese overreaction towards, Tibetans from Tibet living in China-occupied Tibet, they don't allow them to come and meet Dalai Lama ji. They don't want any connection of Tibetans living in Tibet with India. This definitely reflects the Chinese failure, the Communist Chinese failure in severing the relationship and bonding between Tibet and India, and which will continue like this forever. So the Tibetan freedom movement, we know that it has taken its roots in Indian soil. It has been led by, under the leadership of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. So as Indians, movement in a very strong way. So for that thing to come up, because I feel that the Tibetan freedom movement should become a civil society movement. It is very important that it should become a civil society movement. It cannot remain a token political movement in India, because it doesn't matter what the entire world is doing for the Tibetan freedom movement, how they are supporting it. It is great that everybody is coming in support of Tibetan freedom movement, but what India does matters the most. Because if Tibetans are to be understood, then Indians are the people who can understand the Tibetans the best. Indians are the people who can understand the Tibetan culture the best. So it is definitely very important what Indian people are saying about Tibetan freedom movement, what Indian people are feeling about Tibetan freedom movement. That is very important. So as Indians, as an Indian who support the Tibetan freedom movement, it is very important for us to see that the civil society movement is growing in India, because a political movement will become strong when the people's movement is also there. The people's movement at grassroots is happening in India, which is very, very important. So for that, it is very important for the Indian people to connect with the cause, with the Tibetan cause. And so we have to explore, as Tibet supporters, as supporters of Tibetan cause, we need to explore and find ways, how to connect the people of India, how to connect this present generation of India, who can read the details of the history of ancient Tibet, of India, and our spiritual exchange. But we need to reiterate on this connection, and we need to connect them with this cultural affinity, with this spiritual affinity. It is very, very important to do that. So while doing that, it is very important, as Professor Anand Kumar ji has already mentioned about it. It is very important that we need to understand the core philosophy of Tibetan freedom movement. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has led this Tibetan freedom movement in a very dignified way. He has raised a global movement in support of the Tibetan cause, and he has always led the movement based on the values of Buddha Dharma. So Buddha Dharma, the ancient Dharma of India, this is the core strength of Tibetan freedom movement. We cannot support Tibetan freedom movement, we cannot understand the philosophy behind it. And this Buddha Dharma, Dalai Lama ji always reiterates that it is the Nalanda tradition of India which has given strength to Tibetan freedom movement. And Nalanda tradition, as we all know, is an Indian tradition. It is the glory of Indian civilization. So if we cannot understand, if we cannot connect our present generation with the Nalanda tradition, with the essence and importance of Nalanda tradition, I think somewhere the Tibetan freedom movement will remain weak. We cannot strengthen it then. So this is very, very important. So because Gautam Buddha is the greatest Indian, and we Indians have to understand that this Buddhist philosophy is the core value of Tibetan freedom movement, and we need to connect with that. So that is very, very important. And since I'm from Eastern India, so Eastern India has a very close spiritual connection with Tibet, because Eastern India has played a very, very, very vital role in strengthening the Nalanda movement in India in the ancient times. Well, of course, we have to go to the history books for that, so I'll not go into details about it now. So while connecting, so many factors that comes into play, like as Ananda Kumarji also said about the cultural affinity. So Tibet is, if we reflect upon it, there was a time when Buddha Dharma was established in Tibet by Indian gurus, Nalanda gurus like Shanta Rakshita and Padma Sambhava. So the Buddha Dharma reached Tibet from India. The Tibetans consider India as the Arya Bhumi. And at the same time, when the present day India, when we see, many Indians have forgotten about the Nalanda tradition. Many Indians somehow have forgotten about the essence of Buddhist philosophy. So at this time, I think we Indians are looking at the Tibetan civilization, the Tibetan culture. We are looking at the Dalai Lama Ji as our guru. We are relearning our traditions again under the guidance of Dalai Lama Ji and other gurus of Tibetan culture. So this is again this guru-sishya relationship which has been working between Tibet and India. So these are very important factors which we need to reiterate when we are actually working to strengthen the Tibetan freedom movement in India, and which we are doing in Assam and Northeast India. Apart from other things, we are also trying to revive this tradition of India among the people in Assam and Northeast India. So when we, from spiritual connection, when we go to the cultural connection, then we can see that Eastern India has a very, very strong affinity, very strong cultural affinity with Tibet. This Brahmaputra civilization, which starts in Tibet, near Mansarovar, as Yalong Sangpo, the river begins, the Brahmaputra river begins its journey in Tibet as Yalong Sangpo. And it traverses through one of the most adventurous trails, and it reaches India at Tuting in Arunachal Pradesh. And it flows down through Arunachal Pradesh as Siang, and it reaches Assam, and it is known as Brahmaputra in Assam. So this civilization, the Brahmaputra civilization, is actually beginning its journey in Tibet itself, in the Yalong Valley. From Yalong Valley, the Siang Valley, and the Brahmaputra Valley, this connection is not just an ecological connection; it is a cultural connection. It's a connection of a civilization actually. I think many people know that Brahmaputra Valley civilization is immensely rich in its ethnic diversity. It's immensely rich in its cultural diversity. There are so many ethnic communities who have made home in Brahmaputra civilization. So and many of them, most of the communities from Brahmaputra civilization, they have actually come from Tibet. So it's like Tibet is our forefathers' land. For people in Brahmaputra Valley, it is our forefathers' land. So this cultural affinity, we need to focus on this cultural affinity when we are working to support the Tibetan freedom movement, not only in Eastern India. In fact, this Eastern Indian affinity of cultural affinity between Tibet and India, Tibet and Assam, Tibet and Arunachal Pradesh can be focused at national level also, because this Tibetan freedom movement, which is taking root in northeastern India, in Assam, is eventually going to contribute hugely towards the national movement in support of Tibetan freedom movement. And so because this is so well connected, this is so closely connected, the Yalong Valley, the Siang Valley, and the Brahmaputra Valley, I think it is well understood that the future of Brahmaputra Valley civilization hugely depends on what is happening in the Yalong Valley, what is happening to Brahmaputra in its headwaters. And I think it is known to many people that communist China has very draconian hydrological strategies. They are already building multiple dams over Yalong Sangpo, the headwaters of Brahmaputra. They are building such big dams which will actually devastate the whole ecology of the Yalong Valley, which will actually devastate the whole Brahmaputra basin. It actually threatens the Brahmaputra civilization at its very beginning. And we Indians must protest against it. This is very important for Indians to protest against it. It is a global environment crisis. It is a global civilization crisis, which is not showing up anywhere the way it should have. The magnitude of protest is not showing up anywhere. And Free Tibet, a voice from Assam, we are raising this Save Sangpo Siang Brahmaputra campaign in Assam and Northeast India. So we are raising the protest. We can say that this is the first time that a strong protest has taken root in the downstream country, because it is very important to protest the communist Chinese plan to build multiple dams on Yalong Sangpo. They are also planning to transfer water from Yalong Sangpo to the northern Chinese states. And then again, another factor is here that we need to consider. People see that Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government is very strong, they're economically very strong, but it is not so. They are weak and they are breaking down. Communist Party, they have devastated the ecology of China completely. The Chinese rivers, whether it's Yellow River, whether it's Yangtze River, they are devastated. They have already connected these rivers in their, very ambitious river transfer, water transfer policy, water transfer project. And now they are planning to transfer Yalong-Sangpo River to the northern states, because China needs to feed the industries which is there in the northern states. And the northern part of China is facing huge water scarcity, which we Indians should be aware of, which in fact every person in the world should be aware of. So China is actually breaking down. They are very vulnerable. And that's why if we build our protest in a strong way, it really has it really gives strength to the Tibetan freedom movement, because China is very sensitive to this issue. And we need to hit them where it hurts. It is very important to do that. So and at the same time, the Save Sangpo Siang Brahmaputra campaign, it's not just the ecological campaign, though it is a very important ecological campaign, but at the same time, it is a campaign to save the Brahmaputra civilization, save the entire culture from the Yalong Valley to the Brahmaputra Valley. Because this civilization will not survive. It is a very important ecological campaign at the same time, because Eastern India, the Eastern Himalayas, it is considered as a biodiversity hotspot. And Assam is part of it, Arunachal Pradesh is part of it. And this biodiversity, biodiversity is the support system of the livelihood for the millions of people in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. So without this biodiversity life support in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, it will be ecological devastation, ecological catastrophe in that part of India, and which nobody can take care of. People will die of hunger. People will die of, there will be a lot of other problems, social problems, which will crop up because of this devastation of the river. So it is very important for us. And this is the time when we have to protest, because China has already started the work. China has already started the work of the mega dams. And this river linking transfer of Yalong-Sangpo River will soon start. So we must protest it right now. It is very important. And as we all know that communist Chinese government, nobody can stop them from doing what they want to do. Okay. So the only thing is that we really have to strengthen the Tibetan freedom movement. And this cannot happen without a grassroots movement, which is slowly taking up, which is slowly gearing up in Assam and Northeast India. So this political movement in India, which was taking place, a token political movement in India for Tibetan cause, which is slowly, we are trying to give it a shape of a civilian movement in Northeast India, in Assam, a grassroots movement. And we are working for it. We are interacting with villagers. We are interacting with college students, with school students. We are organizing, mass awareness campaigns. Like there was a book fair in 2020-21. Within 10 days, we actually spread the message of Tibetan freedom movement among 80,000 people, which was a huge success. And this has been covered in media across, digital media, print media, everywhere. So we are building awareness in a very huge way. We are also building continuous awareness to literary campaign. We are writing articles, we are writing books. One book will be coming up very soon, which will showcase the Tibetan freedom movement, the people's movement, which is happening in Assam and Northeast India. And again, we are writing, very important is that we are bringing up publication materials in vernacular language, in Assamese language, and other vernacular languages also will be coming up soon. We are making brochures, because it is very important to reach the grassroots. People in villages must know what is Tibetan movement. People in the remote corners of Assam, remote corners of Northeast India, we want them to come to know what is happening there. Because if we cannot connect them, we cannot raise this people's movement, which is very important for the Tibetan freedom movement at this point of time. And apart from that, I think we are also this people's movement is also addressing this very fact that Indians must connect with the Tibetan freedom movement emotionally, which is very important. If we cannot connect emotionally, then the movement will not grow up. The movement will not be strengthened. It will remain a token political movement. And of course, that political movement will grow in its own pace, but the people's movement should strengthen now. And this is the time that we should do it. And I think Eastern India will take a lead in this. Free Tibet, a voice from Assam, will take a lead in this. And there are organizations like Nature's Beacon. I'm part of this organization. Our convener, Sri Shomideep Datta, is India's one of the finest environment activists. So he's a director of Nature's Beacon. It's an environment activist group of India. So we have been, Nature's Beacon has been working for forest protection, for biodiversity conservation for last 4 decades. So this organization like Nature's Beacon are also taking part in this freedom movement, because this Sangpo Siang Brahmaputra campaign is an ecological campaign. It's a global ecological campaign. Like many people talk about global warming. We talk about climate change. Yes, climate change is happening. We know that global warming is happening. We cannot address global warming as such. We cannot address climate change as such. Every year, millions of people gather. Millions of $1 million campaign is held in the name of international conferences and all. But it's not very fruitful. We all know about it. So what we are doing as from Free Tibet, a voice from Assam, as well as from Nature's Beacon, is that we are raising this campaign, Save Sangpo Siang Brahmaputra, because it is connected with the protection of our forests. Assam is known for Kaziranga. Kaziranga is in the floodplains of Brahmaputra River. If Brahmaputra River dries up, there won't be any Kaziranga. It's a World Heritage Site. There won't be any Kaziranga. There is this national park called Dihing Patkai National Park. It is one of the richest national park of India. It's a rainforest. So it will not survive without Brahmaputra River. All the national parks, all the wildlife sanctuaries in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh are located somewhere near Brahmaputra River or its tributaries or the wetlands connected with the Brahmaputra River system. This Brahmaputra River system is the lifeline for biodiversity in Assam and Northeast India. So we have to protect it. So it is very important. And this Free Tibet, a voice from Assam, it's a people's forum, as Randhir ji have already mentioned. So we have different civil society involvement in this forum. Prominent writers, prominent intellectuals of Assam, and filmmakers, artists, singers, people from different various walks of life, villagers, students, youth, everybody is connected with this forum. Nature's Beacon, an organization, a prominent environment organization, also part of the Free Tibet Voice from Assam campaign of Assam. So this is how we are working. So I thought I will share about it with all of you. So that's all I have today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Novanita Sharma. And Free Tibet has been quest of so many inspiring souls like Jayaprakash Narayan, Ram Manohar Lohia. And history offers hope. And one day we will see Free Tibet. So thank you so much, and your continuous efforts and engagement are really remarkable. We really salute your efforts. And whole Northeast people, some time ago, we made so many friends who are working for the cause of Tibetan freedom. And we now it's time for all of us to join our hands together. So thank you so much for an excellent deliberation. Now it's time to have some more question answer and engagement. So I can see some of the questions. So Gopi K.
Can we ask?
Yes, sure, please.
Can we directly? When is the right time? Like, is it a right time to be stepping up into the action, or like we need to take some more time to assess the situation, and maybe we need to see it whether India is strong enough to handle the situation at this point?
Yes, Tashi, would you like to respond?
Hello. Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you for your question, Gopi ji. Hello.
Yes,
Yes, you are
Tashi
audible.
di.
Yeah.
Please
So
go ahead.
right now, the thing is, being born in India. So since working in India, so I can see, I always, every day I experience only the Indian people who are living areas in the Himalayan eastern and the Himalayan region. They face day to day in their life that they see the threats and the Chinese intervention, because since because they are living in the border area, they see and the difficulties every day they face. But the Indians who are living in the central part of India, like South India, like central Rajasthan, and they are not that much aware of the Tibetan issue. And I'm not only saying Tibetan issue, but the Chinese threat. Because what I believe is, since we have experienced, we have seen Chinese have occupied our land, right? And now we are in exile. Our forefathers and Dalai Lama flew from, escaped from our land in 1959. So we have seen, we have experienced, can I speak in Hindi? We have, हमने हिस्ट्री देखा है, लाइक इतिहास को देख के हम कुछ सीखे, मतलब बिकॉज चाइना 1954 से लेके हम बॉर्डर एरिया पे दे हैव कब्जा कर चुके हैं, एंड तब से लेके चाइना हैज बीन अ थ्रेट टू इंडिया. पहले तो तिब्बत थे, नेबरिंग कंट्री हम थे इन चाइना के, अब चाइना के नेबरिंग कंट्री इंडिया है डायरेक्ट. सो दैट्स व्हाई इसलिए मुझे लगता है हमें, because since we are going for this one peaceful in a peaceful way, तो हमें लगता है कि हम सबको एकजुट होके जितना हो सके ज्यादा से ज्यादा जन आंदोलन हो, मतलब मास मूवमेंट हो, लोगों में ज्यादा जागरूकता हो, तभी हम इसको एक वॉइस आउट करके एकजुट होके देन इंडियन गवर्नमेंट तक हम, क्योंकि अभी जो भी लाइक what I see is like China, since China and India government आपस में, they always like make a policy treaty, they have a dialogue, right? So via through that medium, I think Indian government को अपने इंडिया like अपने कंट्री के सुरक्षा को भी लेके like जाहिर करे, like dialogue करे अपना, because what I see is like the people who are living across the border area, they see, they know the threat they are going through, experiencing every day in terms of environment to hai, because even I'm like from Arunachal Pradesh, born and brought up in Arunachal Pradesh, to Brahmaputra and the building the dams and like all the consequences, right? So I feel all over the India सबको जागरूकता होना चाहिए, सबको पार्टिसिपेट करना चाहिए. इसके लिए हमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा जागरूकता लाने होगी. इसलिए हम सब एक जुट होके उसके लिए समय लगेगा गोपी जी, पर समय लगेगा. कीप द फेथ अलाइव, उम्मीद पे सब निर्भर है, राइट? सो peacefully, as His Holiness has rightfully said, via dialogue and peacefully ही, मतलब उसके लिए थोड़ा समय लगेगा, but सत्यमेव जयते, this is what I also believe, truth will always triumph. So yes, thank you so much, Gopi ji.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And I
Tashi.
can see Professor Anand Kumar has raised his hand. So Professor Anand Kumar, please share your thought.
First of all, it is so pleasing to hear Tashila talking in Hindi and explaining her perspective in a bilingual manner. Actually, India is supposed to be talking to China about the complexity of India-China relations, including the problems in border area. Suppose we keep quiet. We have been keeping quiet at the United Nations level. Will that improve the situation? No. China knows the truth. that since 1962, every Indian is aware that Chinese have occupied a lot of Indian land, nearly 100,000 square kilometer area. Part of it has been taken by China, even in occupied Kashmir. And then, of course, China has colonized Tibet. If we keep quiet, the truth will not change. The protest is growing. The world is waking up. So India, being neighbor of China and neighbor of Tibet, has to tell the truth without being offensive, without being aggressive. And we can play a role in communicating between Chinese and the Tibetan leadership. So if you're talking about war, it is so unpredictable. But if you're talking about peace, yes, India can and must negotiate with the Chinese about tragedy of Tibet and insecurity of the Himalayan part of India. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand Kumarji. There is a even in the peace negotiation, there are two things where you can play hardball, one, or like very softly, whatever you say, we can come to the keep talking. Like remember even in Doklam issue, like 16 or 17 peace talks has happened, but then nothing came out of it. But only they are trying to occupy, build up more and more what do you call assets of there and building there. But should we play the should India play the hardball? Means hardball means what is the asset that we have to play the hardball? India.
Actually, it is the Chinese in Galwan Valley who have started playing the hardball. You have to only hit back in the sense, in the language of cricket. If they are sending us bouncers, in our defense, we have every right to send that bouncer for a boundary or for a six. If you duck it, there'll be another bouncer, then another bouncer, then another bouncer. You must play the game according to the rules of international diplomacy. We are talking about the need of rule of law, and no international law permits Chinese to be aggressive on the Indian people, as well as to keep colonizing the neighbors, including the Tibet. So our speaking the truth has to be the bottom line. Let Chinese define it, whether they consider it a soft or a hard stance, but the world will be on our side. World has been watching what is going on in Tibet. You know, one Buddhist monk self-immolating shook the strategy of America in Vietnam, and it became a talk of the world. More than 158 monks, nuns, and ordinary Tibetan people have self-immolated. The world is watching. Only thing is, as neighbor, if we make a strategy of studied silence, it will be misinterpreted by the Chinese as our being afraid of Chinese might. It will be misinterpreted by the rest of the world that there is something unreal about the Tibetan tragedy. So both ways, we are in a win-win situation today, because Chinese have violated our territorial integrity, and Chinese have been ignoring the 1949 agreement of maintaining genuine autonomy of Tibet. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you. Any other friends? I can see one post. Ravi Kumar or Binay Kumarji, you have just written something. Yes. It's taking some time. So maybe Professor Gyan Glue.
Yes, excuse me. Thank you very much. It was really very interesting. Am I audible? Because I am not sure.
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Yes. Thank you very much. Perhaps, well, there is a particular question which interests me in this moment, but of course it is all interesting. If I am not mistaken, I have heard of the question of language, and I would like to know whether whether there has been any kind of attempt to destroy the language of Tibet by the occupying forces, because one of the first attempt usually to destroy a civilization, or at least to limit strongly the force of this civilization, is to limit the use of the free use of the language, of the native language, of course, by the occupying forces. This has happened very many times in history, and it has also happened, for instance, well, there is perhaps in Europe we have the example of Greece when under the dictatorship, which was an internal dictatorship, but anyway, a dictatorship and occupying of some forces on other forces, and of course a pressure of forces over people, for instance. There was nearly the prohibition of using a particular kind of Greek language, and by the dictatorship. And here I would be very, very interested in the question of the language of Tibet and of the possibility of preservation of the language of Tibet, but most of all, perhaps by the strategy of the oppressing forces on the language of Tibet, because language is always one of the first points which are going to be destroyed when an occupying force wants to destroy the mentality, the thought, the free thought, the traditions, and so on of a population. So I thank you very much. I would be very interested in this subject, but of course, all contributions were excellent, very good, very interesting, and I thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for that very important question, and I would like to answer that because yes, you're rightfully said that because destruction of language, it is happening inside Tibet right now. Because Chinese, I have a paper also, I can provide you all the report as well, because our Tibetan CTA staff researchers have a report I have with me, so I can provide you with all that. But here I would like to add one more, like Sinicization of Tibetan Buddhism is one of the topmost strategy by Chinese President Xi Jinping. Right now, currently happening inside Tibet. They are sending our young Tibetan kids taken from their home and sending them to boarding school so that they won't be in touch, because child's first teacher is their parents, right? Because for us, our parents has taught us, because I believe I'm religiously born and brought up by my parents, Buddhism, my Tibetan culture, everything. My first teacher is my parents. So similarly, what Chinese government is doing is they're sending our young child, Tibetan children, sending them to boarding school, completely guarded, no in touch with their parents. They are unaware. They can be brainstormed, manipulated, and policies, whatever the policies the Chinese government would want to impose on them. So they are completely destroying our identity. So like our Tibetan NGO also, and us like CTA also, we strongly believe that you can kill us, but you can never kill our language. A gun can kill a person, right? But a gun can never kill the spirit of that person, the soul of that person. So this is, so yes, here in exile, with the help of a blessing of His Holiness Dalai Lama and Indian government also, first major step His Holiness has in the exile, he first constructed schools so that Tibetan, like me, because I'm the third generation here, we have been taught and we have studied in Tibetan school. preserving our culture, language. And because the language and the culture is the identity of oneself. This is what I believe. And that's how we have been preserving our language and culture, and equals to your identity, your voice. Later on, your voice, your issue, your agenda. That's how we can keep alive our agenda and issue. So I thank you so much for that question. And Chinese government is currently doing that sinicization of Tibetan Buddhism, because language, once the language has been killed, and it will eventually killing Buddhism also, because Buddhism, the text, it's all in Tibetan language. And I hope our Indian brothers and sisters and foreigners also know, who come in India, we have preserved, Tibetans have preserved the text, Buddhism text, everything, and then still intact, and it's in Dharamsala, also in other monasteries also. So in order to, if you want to learn about the Buddhism as well, so Tibetan language, Tibetan text, one must learn, or get taught in India. So thank you so much. So we are successfully preserving our language and culture here in India, in exile, freely, with the help of Indian brothers and sisters, and the blessing of His Holiness Dalai Lama. And in our government also, all the letters, all the correspondence, we practice our Tibetan language. We use Tibetan language, because that is our #1 priority, to preserve it. Thank you so much.
Yes. Any other friends? Maybe Professor Giri, would you like to add some of your thought?
Continue to the same question. I have one question added to the same point. So what is the current population of the Tibetans in Tibet right now? And is there any change of demography at this point in Tibet?
Hello. Okay. Am I?
Yes, that's it.
Yes. So, I can provide you with the population demographic survey of Tibetans in India. So, which has been, so inside Tibet, I can email you, because as you are also aware,
Yes.
Inside Tibet, how much is there the freedom of
Understood.
journalists, it's suppressed, and yes. So due to that reason, so in India, so the current is demographic, this population number is 70 to 80,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we are also running out of the time. So thank you so much, Tashi, and Novanita, if you want to add some of your thought. You please unmute yourself.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Yeah, just at the end, see, Tibet will be free. There's no doubt about it. And I think as Indians, we should, yes, we should know our adversary. We should assess them properly, their adversary. But India is strong. India is a very strong nation, culturally, spiritually. And we all know that, being a strong nation, we can very strongly support Tibet cause. And we should not fear China. there has been a lot of propaganda about China. Many people have written such things that which has glorified China, out of the context, out of this thing. I feel so. So now it's a time that we Indians should consider, we should understand our strength, our spiritual strength, our political strength also, and the strength of Indian people. We should exert the strength of Indian people now. We should show China that we always stand by Tibet, as a good neighbor, as a good friend, as spiritual brothers. So we should always exert that, and the world should know about it. And Indian people, what Indian people say is the best expression of what India sees. So we Indian people, the Indian citizens, should start, expressing ourselves in support of Tibet, in support of the Tibetan brothers and sisters. I feel that that is very, very important at this point of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So with this, I would say the idea of making Tibet or working for the cause of Tibet liberation, because Tibet stands for more than religious, cultural, and or political for me. It stands for all those who are occupied, who are oppressed, who are dehumanized or displaced in this world, and displaced from the homeland. So being an Indian and being a follower of Mahatma Gandhi and Swami Vivekananda, we should also inculcate this spirit. So thank you so much, everybody, for giving your time, your I can see your thirst of knowing Tibet. So thank you all of the speakers, Professor Anand Kumar, Professor Anand Kumar Giri, and Novanita Sharma ji, and Tashi. So Tashi, would you say something? Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would like to say something. Sorry, Gyalunji, Gyalunji ji, because I would like to speak in Hindi, if you permit.
Okay. Yes, please, please.
Yeah. मैं अपने भारत ब्रदर सिस्टर्स को एक रिक्वेस्ट अपील करना चाहता हूँ. एक सिंस जब से इंडिया में हम यही कहते हैं कि चाहे आपके रिश्तेदार फॉरेन में हो, कई और देश में हो, आपका पड़ोसी ही काम आता है ना. Whenever you get sick, पड़ोसी ही काम आता है. Like when you get sick, पानी के लिए पड़ोसी. But आप ये देखिए, हमारा जो पड़ोसी देश है चाइना, पड़ोसी हो के हमारे घर में घुस के हमारा घर ही छीन लिया. तो ऐसा पड़ोसी को हम कभी भी विश्वास नहीं कर सकते. They have always deceived us. They are only good in suppressing, deceiving, है ना. हमारा जो Tibetans who are like जो जैसे कि थर्ड जनरेशन है, कल को हमारे फोर्थ फिफ्थ जनरेशन है, जब से वो पैदा होंगे बाय बर्थ, वैसे हम लोग कहते हैं बाय बर्थ, लेकिन फ्रीडम सबका हक है. बाय बर्थ they have been denied, deprived with the freedom. That's only because of China. तो ये सब हम हमारे भारतीय भाई बहनों को एक्सपीरियंस नहीं करना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि हमें कुछ सीखना होगा. कल को चाइना being the superpower right now economically, तो हम इसको like इतिहास को देख के हम ये सीखना चाहिए. अभी हम चुप होके, या क्योंकि हमने चुप होके देख लिया है हम सभी ने, तो इसलिए मैं तो यही विनती करती हूँ, सबसे यही मेरा अनुरोध है कि हम सब मिलजुल इकट्ठा होके ही हम फीडबैक दे सकते हैं, विद पीसफुल, विद लव, विद पीस, विद थ्रू डायलॉग. तो यही मेरी विनती है कि हम कुछ सीखें, हम सभी को एकजुट होना चाहिए, तभी हम आगे हमारा जो मुद्दा है, जो हमारा लक्ष्य है, उसको हम प्राप्त कर सकेंगे। तो यही मेरी मैं तहे दिल से सबको अपनी शुक्रिया अदा एंड आप सभी ने, इंडिया ने हमें इतना प्रेरित किया है अभी तक। आप लोग हमारे Solinus has rightfully said, इंडिया हमारे गुरु है, हम चेला है। तो हमने भी इंडिया से बहुत सीखा है, सत्यमेव जयते, पीसफुल डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन कैसे, सब हमने इंडिया से ही सीखा है और आगे भी सीखते रहेंगे। आप लोग का सहयोग बहुत हमारे लिए कीमती है, महत्वपूर्ण है। आपका सहयोग चाहिए और आगे भी हम काम करेंगे। धन्यवाद, आपके बदौलत। हाँ, आपका सहयोग चाहिए। थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू, बहुत धन्यवाद। थैंक यू सो मच।
धन्यवाद to everyone. धन्यवाद Tashi and धन्यवाद all the speakers.
धन्यवाद, थैंक यू।